Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just another month here at Bad Anime Podcast, except for it isn't, baby, because we got a whole month of Hideaki Anno to get through. That's right, this month is Anno month. If you do not know Hideaki Anno, he's the legendary creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion and all of the Evangelions to follow. And although Evangelion will be on the top of our list to tackle this month, the final week we have reserved for a separate show directed by Hideaki Anno before Neon Genesis Evangelion. Ain't that fun? So happy Anno month, you kids. Enjoy the show, or whatever it is, the audio presentation, something like that. What is on Shinji's hand?
Well, like I said, if you guys wanted to understand Ava through this podcast, don't go watch it, come back. I think we should have said that in the beginning.
It's bad. Anime.
Hey everybody, my name is John.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Bad Anime, the podcast where we decide,
is this anime bad?
But before you get worked up, everybody, before you get really worked up, just for 1 second, just listen to us 1 sec, okay, all right?
Right.
Today we're talking about Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Right.
It ain't bad.
No.
It ain't bad. We're breaking kayfabe. We're breaking format.
We're charging it hot with this one.
We're telling you off the bat that it is not bad.
Right.
This episode is part of our Does It Hold Up side series where we take a critically acclaimed anime and talk about if it holds up to this day.
Wow, you're spilling all the tea right now.
I'm spilling the beans. That's what today, because I don't want anybody listening to this going into it saying these guys hate Ava, which is not correct.
It's the opposite of true.
I love it.
Okay, there's a question mark there.
I think.
I'm at the same time, I'm glad we don't do video because I always stare at cameras. But that was a look that says, I don't know how I feel about this.
I really don't. And I think that's part of the amazingness of this podcast, because we're going to discover that today.
Yes.
About what our feelings on it overall were.
Right.
I have not had a chance to talk through it yet.
Yes, we've again, since we're destroying the idea of kayfabe here, we've watched this probably a month and a half ago, 2 months ago.
Yes.
So it's been a while, and we've actively told ourselves, let's not talk about it, let's not talk about it, let's not talk about it. Yeah. I will say there was a great phone conversation we had. Because I called you out of the blue. We had some plans for a fun little weekend trip I wanted to go over. And your tone when I picked up the phone was anything I've ever heard. You sounded tired and defeated and almost high in a way. Or I was like, hey, Bouncy, what's up? And you're like, Rob, I'm sorry. You called it a really bad time. I'm about 10 minutes away from finishing Evangelion. I hung up.
You hung up immediately, and I knew that you were a real friend at that time, because I clicked pause, right? I'm on episode 26 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. I clicked pause. I see the marker as 9 minutes left in the episode, and you called, and I was like, hey, buddy, I'm on episode 26 of Evangelion. I got about 10 minutes left.
Yeah, so then I hung up, and then around 11 minutes later, you call me. And that's the only time we talked about it. And I remember the entire time I told you, no details, no details, no details.
No. We did not go over any details. We really didn't get in-depth with anything. I gave some general immediate feelings on the ending and what I felt from the ending.
There was a lot of emotion suddenly pouring out of you.
Yes.
The call was around 40 minutes, and I talked for maybe 7 of them. It was amazing. And it was my first time seeing someone experience Ava like that.
Yeah.
And I guess let's backtrack a little bit.
Let's backtrack.
So that way we can talk about how we decided to do this.
Yes.
So like you said, we're gonna be doing this occasionally because, even though this is bad anime, we have to look at some of the classics and see if they hold up. Because there's a ton of well-regarded shows that were produced, anywhere from, 40, 20, 15 years ago. We want to look back at those and see, hey, do they hold up? Are they still worth watching?
Right. And, of course, are they as good as people say they are?
Exactly.
Which is a big question.
That's a very big question. So that was in the back of my head. But at the same time, Evangelion for me was one of the shows that's been on my radar for years. And I mean it literally probably around 10 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, because I don't know this. We haven't talked about it in depth, obviously.
Right.
But kind of for you, Rob, take me through what made you actually decide to watch Evangelion? Because the only reason I watched it was because you watched it.
Yes.
And you were like, we got to talk about this.
Right.
You got to watch it.
Exactly.
And
I didn't even.
I did. And
At the time, I wasn't sure if we were even going to do it on the podcast now, because I didn't know what, in terms of like the structure of the podcast. I know the show is called Bad Anime, but I want to talk to you about this, even if it's not a podcast episode.
Right.
We got to talk about it. Then we quickly realized, okay, we have to talk about this, and we want our voice. We want the world to know our opinions.
Yes.
But to get back to your question, it was around 2011, the first time it came on my radar, when my first infatuation with this medium happened. Because at the time, as I've said before, my introduction was a little weird to the anime world. And when I first got in, I was reading a lot of works of Baigo Nagai, Devilman in particular, and I was watching a lot of Gundam. Because, I grew up on Power Rangers, giant robots. I'm like, I got to give it a shot.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, those series, and also I should mention, I was very big into Japanese live action stuff. So a lot of Ultraman, a lot of Kamen Rider, a lot of Power Rangers / Super Sentai. Apparently, there's a man by the name of Hideaki Anno who also loved all those things. And it's amazing that even though there's such an age gap between us, he made the show the year after I was born. We both grew up and spent our teenage years watching all the same media.
Interesting.
So I loved 70s Japanese anime and live action stuff. And then, the reason I became aware of Eva, because I was reading about these shows I love, Devilman, Gundam, Ultraman, just name a few. And basically every article and every Wikipedia post said, and all these shows later went on to influence Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I was like, what is this? This was 2011. At the time, the Eva license was in kind of this weird limbo state. And I've never been tech savvy, and I've destroyed some computers trying to go on torrent sites or the piracy sites. So I never really dabbled with it since like 2009, I want to say. Probably since I was 15 years old. Let's just leave it there. Yeah. So around that time. So I'm like, wow, this show sounds cool, but I have no way to watch it. I was able to find the first couple episodes, of the original ADV dub on DVD. In my big FYE splurge when they were closing, I was able to get only the first disc of Eva. And I don't know if I still have it or not. I might. I have to check my my inventory. But I watched the first couple episodes of Eva several years ago, and I first thought, okay, this seems like a kind of more artsy, atmospheric take on the mecha genre. And I've loved mechs, and I was very excited to see where it went. But there was only 4 or 5 episodes in. And then I had to wait several years later till it came out on Netflix.
Wow.
And then...
Wait, so you watched the first few episodes on DVD?
Yes.
Before you knew anything else that happened in the show ever?
Yeah.
That is fascinating. And then you waited about 5 to 6 years.
No, it was more like 7 or 8.
7 or 8?
No, actually, no, it was actually more like 10 years.
10 years on those episodes?
Yeah, I rewatched it, of course.
That's pretty crazy.
But because all it came out, I heard vaguely about the ending. The only thing I knew about Eva is that it gets very artsy. And I'm like, that's interesting, because the first couple episodes, you get some of Hideaki. We'll talk about Anno's directing style, and it's a little artsier than most. By anime standards, I mean. Yeah. But then Eva kind of fell on the back burner for me, because I really fell out of anime for several. I didn't get back into anime until 2020. And there was 2016 I fell off. So it was a good 4 years I wasn't watching anything. And then I didn't even realize that Evangelion had come to Netflix. And for those watching, for those listening, we'll talk about this. We watched the recent Netflix dub. I have notes on the Netflix dub, and I'll get into those when we get to them. Yeah. No, it's not super important to the story. But I finished Evangelion around 2021, earlier this year, because I realized, we're starting an anime podcast. I never actually got around to finishing Evangelion. I should do that, because I loved everything else that came before it, and I got super back into Gundam. So I'm like, well, I'm in a mech mood right now. So and I was watching some of the darker Gundams, because there are some very dark Gundams. So I'm like, I should watch Evangelion. And let's just say I wasn't ready to watch it, and I'm still not ready to talk about it.
I was going to say, you say it, I'm in a mech mood, and just be like, I'm in a mech mood for depression, because
and that's great, because I had no idea what the themes of the show were.
Yeah.
Literally zero.
I can see you falling, because I know you're a big mech guy. I'm not a big mech guy. I just haven't really connected with the medium that much previously.
Yeah.
Before this. But I know that you're a big mech guy.
Right.
And so when you enjoy mechs to that caliber, something like a show like Evangelion must be attractive to you, right? Because it's like, oh, I mean, it's mechs, but it's kind of with like a bit of a darker tone, as you were talking about, a bit more of like an artistic tone towards this. A lot of focusing on the characters rather than the battles.
Right.
Which is an interesting take on the mech genre.
Well, no, actually, it's hard to say because Eva has influenced the mech genre so much.
Yes.
So now, ever since '96, a lot of mechs are basically Eva. Mm-hmm. In a lot of I shouldn't say that, but there's a lot of clear influence now.
Sure.
So that's why any mech after '95 is really worth watching.
Yeah, I watched this show recently actually called Darling in the Franxx. Do you think that has any relation to Evangelion?
Yeah, but
do you think that
other than they like to borrow a few elements, maybe there's some trace influence there, I'd say.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit, just
a tad.
It's okay. I'll stop talking. That's for another day.
We'll talk more about that whole
Oh God
thing later.
Well,
but anyway, back to
continue.
The main... Sorry, we went off on a big tangent.
That's okay. We got time for tangents here.
we got time.
Just sipping some Kirin Ichibans, talking about
not Ebisu, which would disappoint Masato.
Sorry, Masato. He's already disappointed enough,
But anyway, so like I said, I wasn't ready for Eva, and when we because we recorded the first 2 episodes of this podcast before I finished it, and for a 10-year stretch, my favorite anime of all time was this little 30-minute OVA, Gakuen Tokusou Karon. It's episode 0. It's our introduction to the series. So if you're a first-time listener, go back and watch it, and you'll learn why that was my favorite. Mm-hmm. I still love that OVA. It's now my number 2 of all time. Not only is Eva my favorite anime of all time, it's become one of my favorite media franchises, period.
Wow.
And we'll get into this in the next, I don't know how long we're going to talk about this today. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the themes here and a lot of the characters, a lot of their struggles hit me in a very deep personal way. Because I saw a lot of myself in 2 characters in particular. And there's 2 other characters. Just seeing them do things made me cry. Mm-hmm. And I reacted more viscerally to this show than I do most media. And people might laugh when I say this, and it's fine if you want to laugh when I say it. The only thing that the only avenue of fiction that makes me react this strongly is professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. Because, that's the ultimate blend of theater and reality.
Yes.
Because when you see these guys, on the verge of killing each other, it creates a lot of drama. And these are characters with goals and aspirations. Mm-hmm. And seeing that live in person, that affected me more than any other, really, I guess you could say piece of media or any medium of fiction. Until Eva. There are shows that really hit me in ways, mm-hmm. Devilman, of course, in its various incarnations had a huge impact on me. But very few shows had the ability to draw this amount of emotion out of me that Eva has. Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, I said, hey, Bouncy, you might want to check out this little show on Netflix. It's called Neon Genesis Evangelion. And then there's a movie that you should watch, which we'll talk about. Oh. We'll save the movie for another day.
Yes, we'll save the movie for another show. But thank you for giving us the lowdown and like what your whole history behind it. Because, I mean, to kind of take that ball and run with it, right? Mm-hmm. You told me, right, okay, Bouncy, you might want to check out this little thing called Neon Genesis Evangelion, right?
Right.
The first time I heard about Eva, it was actually me, you, I believe, at our buddy Chris's place, at his place in like Eastern Long Island, right?
Yes.
We were all there. We were all there for a weekend to watch some AEW, some All Elite Wrestling.
Yep.
And we were hanging out, and I remember somebody bringing up like crazy animes to watch and just ridiculous animes. Like I think our buddy Sotak was there.
Oh God, man. Michael Sotak, if you hear this, we love you.
Oh boy, he loves his odd bunch of animes, but
he's a big contributor to a lot of my anime library. Anyway,
but we were all talking, and Chris, I think Chris at one point said like, yeah, I mean it's no Eva though. And then everyone was like, oh, yeah, it's fucking no Eva. Oh, jeez. Yeah. And I was like, what is this show? And I actually wrote a note down of the name.
Oh, wow.
Very poorly spelled in my phone. And from there, I knew the name. Mm-hmm. I didn't exactly watch it.
Right.
I didn't know how accessible it was. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
You can easily watch it.
Yep.
Not only is Evangelion on Netflix, the end of Evangelion is also on Netflix.
Yes, the movie.
The movie coming right after it.
Yeah.
So it's all there. And of course, when you watched it, you were like, this anime kind of changed my life. And I think we should watch it for the show. I was like, yeah, sure. And I'll tell you the exact weekend that I watched it. Because once again, this year for AEW All Out,
Right.
you were at Chris's place with a couple of friends, and I stayed home. I stayed home because I've been very overworked at my job lately.
Yes, you needed some time to yourself.
I just needed some me time.
Understandable.
And in that entire Labor Day weekend, 2021, I watched all of Evangelion.
Right.
Watched the entire series front to back.
Actually, a big asterisk there. So I didn't want to cut you off,
Yes,
but
no, sure.
I should mention at this point you have not seen the Rebuild movies.
I have not.
So that's going to be a question that comes up.
No.
Folks, he has not seen Rebuilds. I have.
Yes.
Anyway,
I have just seen the series proper and End of Evangelion,
Right.
the movie.
Right.
That's all I've consumed. And that whole weekend turned out to be one of the wildest weekends I could have had, even though I didn't leave my house.
Right. And I should mention that call we mentioned earlier. I called you, I believe, was that the Monday or the Tuesday?
It was like, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, sometime like that.
Yeah,
I
like
finished it near the end. I think I didn't finish the whole thing that particular weekend.
Yes, you got through most of it.
I think I left the episodes 25 and 26 for another day.
I think you left 24, 25, and 26, if I remember.
Yes, I watched all three last ones.
And I was like, oh boy, he's going to meet Kaoru, and then the ending's coming.
Boy, and holy shit did I meet Kaoru. But from there, I think now that we've kind of talked about why we both watched it, why we both want to talk about it today, and what we need to say about the origins of us watching Evangelion.
Yeah.
I think it's now time to get into a bit of the meat of this show.
You're not ready, are you? Neither am I.
I'm not fucking ready at all, Rob. I'm really, really not. There's a lot about this show that I need to talk about. I have extensive notes.
Holy shit, that's a book.
I don't even know where to start. Look at this.
For the listeners, because me and Bouncy are both millennials, we take notes exclusively on our phone. And his entire notes screen is filled up with notes, and he's scrolling, and there's still more.
Most of them say Toji.
Okay. Really?
No, but before we get there.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I'll wait.
First thing I want to know.
Sure.
How did you feel right when the series ended? Can you remember how you felt at that moment?
Oh, totally. I was pissed off that I had to go to bed. Because I got home from my night job, and I finished it around 6 o'clock in the morning. I think I had the last 2 episodes to go. And I was pissed because I wanted to watch the end of Eva immediately. But then I had to wake up for other reasons. Then I'd watch it later that day. But I loved the original ending. Mm-hmm. I know it's divisive, but my initial interpretations, I found it very uplifting. Mm-hmm. Because let's just say the series takes it starts out as your fun... As a fun mech romp in the beginning, but with a darker edge. It starts off like that, but then there's an escalation, and it's about the struggles of a few of our main characters. Yeah, and in particular our hero Shinji Ikari. Right, 14 years old. He's forced into this terrible situation. You learned how broken he is as a kid, and as the series goes on, this child is broken. Yes, and we'll get into this more, but I related heavily to him. Not because I'm that way now. Mm-hmm. If anything, I'm a lot like Misato currently. But at various points in my years in development, I exhibited a lot of the same characteristics as Shinji. And you use the term hero. Yeah. Which I think should be approached very loosely for Shinji Ikari. Our protagonist. Not in like a bad way. No, I know what you mean. Not in a bad way. Right. But in just a way that I'm glad you used that term. Because Shinji is such an interesting character because he's not the hero of the day. No. Right? I feel like you see a lot of animes where the main character is like your Goku, your Naruto, your kind of big presence. Yeah. Shinji is the exact opposite of that. Right. Shinji does not want to get in that fucking robot. No. Shinji does not want to save the day. No. Shinji wants to live his life, wants to be just away from any pressures of society. That's the big theme here. And that's the theme that really got me with Shinji is because I had a lot of that in my developmental years. I was afraid to face the world, for lack of a better term. And I just, didn't understand the world around me. I was deaf for the first 2 years of my life. Mm-hmm. So, and, I'm kind of there's disagreements whether or not I'm on the autism spectrum or not from various doctors that I've seen over the years. But in the beginning, in my developmental years, I just I had no grasp of the world around me because like I had these terrible ear infections when I was younger. So I would just constantly not be able to hear things. So I developed incredible OCD just to cope with that.
Wow.
And so I had my own way of dealing with things and avoiding stress and pressures. And Shinji just wants to be left alone. He's been hurt so many times that he just wants to skate through life and not feel any more pain.
Yes.
That's fucking powerful. Because and exactly like you said, that's his goal.
Right.
A lot of other protagonists of not even just anime, just fiction, want to be the hero of the day.
Right.
Want to save the damsel in distress. Want to swing through the trees with their sword.
Shinji doesn't want to do anything.
No, and he spends a lot of the show asking himself,
Yes.
what he wants to do.
What do I want?
He doesn't know what he wants,
And
but he's a kid, so that makes sense.
yes.
With 14, I have no fucking idea what I want.
And that is a very real approach to creating a character.
Yes,
It's so different, again, from a lot of other series, from a lot of other modes of fiction,
right.
where your hero or your protagonist is somebody that has a goal in mind, right?
Yeah.
Naruto wants to become Hokage.
Yeah.
Goku wants to become the strongest in the world.
Right.
Asta from Black Clover wants to become the Wizard King. You know, you got your goals.
Yeah.
And you're set for those goals. Shinji is kind of slapped onto your lap
Yes.
at the beginning of the series without any goals or without any sense of purpose for himself.
Yes.
Other people, though, see purpose in him.
Yes.
Which is the most interesting part because he is a very integral part to how the series moves.
Exactly.
But there is something I had to grapple with throughout the entire series.
Go ahead.
Which is, do I like Shinji?
Okay.
And I'm not sure if I did.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I didn't.
Okay.
At the end of the day, I'm inconclusive on that.
Okay, wow.
I'm not sure if I liked him or hated him.
Okay.
Which I think makes him a great character.
There you go.
Because I genuinely can't tell you if I enjoyed Shinji as a character or wanted him to go away. He did not have go away heat. I'll tell you that much.
He did not have go away heat. You did not want him to run away.
I just didn't want him to run away. But the thing is, he talks about running away the entire series, and he's like,
he does it a few times.
He does it a lot.
Yep.
And there are characters around him that we will talk about,
right,
that get him to not do that. And I think his relationship with Misato is one of the most confusing things out of the entire fucking series, because I'm sitting here, Misato. Okay, so the first, I'll say this baseline: the first 10 episodes of the show, didn't love it.
Here's the thing:
the last 16, I fucked with it, and I'll tell you why. The first 10 episodes to 12 episodes are a consistent back and forth with Shinji Misato.
Yes,
it's all about, okay, another angel attack, guys.
Yeah,
we gotta send Shinji, and Shinji's like, I don't wanna.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, you gotta.
Yep.
And Misato's like, you gotta. And then there are a couple instances where Shinji decides to leave and decides to not pilot the Eva anymore.
Right.
Even though that's the only thing that makes his father proud of him, as he continuously puts through his own head.
Right.
But then Misato is this block, this person that stands between him, Shinji, and his true realization of what his purpose is by conditionally getting him to continue piloting this Eva to a point where you're thinking, does Misato actually care about Shinji, or does she just want him to pilot this Eva in any way she can?
Well, no, you see, there's a couple great scenes here. You have to remember this, where there's a point where, wow, we're just throwing our emotions out there. This is very Eva of us.
We're getting into it. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing: if we're talking about the dynamic between Misato and Shinji, I adore it because it is challenged. It is not clear what their dynamic is.
It's very unclear.
Shinji has no idea how he feels about Misato.
No.
He lusts after her a few times, but he's also terrified of her. Misato sees a lot of herself in Shinji, as you learn later on. In the beginning, it gets hinted at that, hey, Misato feels something, like, she doesn't know how she feels about Shinji either. I mean, she does offer, and when the series begins, she realizes, wait, you've been living by yourself for a very long time. That sounds terrible. Come live with me.
Yeah.
And, all the hilarious hijinks ensue. I get what you're saying about the first 10 episodes because it's a different show. However, when you watch the whole series back like I did, there's a lot of seeds planted in those first 10 episodes that really pay off by the end. Especially in the Shinji Misato dynamic. But anyway, I really believe that Misato does care about Shinji quite a bit. But there's a lot of frustration there. There's the one scene, I forget how far it is into the series. I think it might be before the first 10 episodes, maybe after it, where Masato's like, if you don't want to pilot the thing, fucking go. Where
Yes.
she's mad. But here's what we don't know. Is she mad at Shinji, or is she mad at herself for failing this child? That's my question, because she's like, I can't convince you to pilot. She puts on that she's very mad at Shinji, but you could tell she really does care about him. There are some moments that really make it clear, like, hey, she feels something for this kid. And we later learn, at least my interpretation is because she sees a lot of herself in Shinji. Mm-hmm. She's also afraid to get too close to people.
Right.
As we explore with the relationship with my boy Kaji.
Oh, Kaji. Yeah. Yes. A
lot of raw emotion, folks. So I hope you like people just viscerally reacting to Ava, because you're going to settle in, because we haven't even gotten to Rei yet.
Or Asuka. Or Toji. All right?
Okay, so when can we get... Oh, okay, Shinji's father, Gendo.
I mean, since we started talking about Shinji,
yeah,
I think it's important that we talk about kind of all the circumstances surrounding our main character, and Misato was one of them. And I get what you're saying about like her caring for Shinji as well, and maybe once I rewatch it, I'll kind of get more of that. First watch, it came across to me as like she could care about him,
right?
But at the end of the day, she has a job to do,
right?
And she is kind of like this surrogate mother / boss.
Very much so.
Of Shinji, which is such a weird dynamic.
Which is so cool, though.
It's very strange because she has to connect with him on a personal level. Mm-hmm. She has to get him to pilot this Ava, and she has to get him to not leave and not leave the operation, which is a big question I had at the end of it. And this will kind of bring Gendo in for a second.
Yes.
Why can't Shinji leave? Because couldn't Gendo, at the end of the day, just get a dummy plug for that Ava?
That's the thing. He could leave. And Gendo, Shinji's father, is more than okay with him leaving. Mm-hmm. Because, we know, of course, we'll save End of Ava, but throughout the series, we're led to believe that Gendo outright doesn't like his son.
Yeah.
Just has no feelings towards his kid. And he's kind of a bastard. Let's just say this.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of shitty.
But anyway, Gendo, he developed these Evangelions, these giant robots, and to fight the angels, the vague species of aliens and other creatures that are destroying the earth. Mm-hmm. After the second impact, which was this big catastrophe, and now we have angels running around everywhere. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
But classic setup for the Monster of the Week scenario.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that Gendo, he would love to push Shinji out. In my opinion, it felt like he just didn't want the kid there.
Yeah.
But he realized, okay, I might have to have him here. But then once he got the dummy plug system ready to go, and there was a great battle with the Ava that got infested by the angel that Toji was in.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Toji.
My boy Toji.
Fucking Toji, really? Toji. Anyway, so he had the system ready to go. Misato was the only one who wanted him there. And in my opinion, I feel like Misato wanted Shinji there for himself, because I feel like she wanted Shinji to grow in ways she felt like she couldn't. And a lot of it was tough love.
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
So, but it was so weird because she has to balance her responsibilities as a weird surrogate mother and a woman tasked with keeping humanity safe.
Which is kind of part of this larger theme in the show. And since we talked about Gendo, I think we could talk about this as well with someone like Yui. There's a lot of mom stuff going on in this show.
Oh yeah, totally.
Tons of mom stuff.
Tons of it's motherly and paternal stuff. It's just a lot of parent stuff.
Parent stuff, but specifically mom stuff.
Specifically moms.
I'll tell you why. I mean, we got, of course, Misato as a surrogate mother.
Yeah.
We got Ritsuko and her surrogate mother, which is a fucking computer, the Magi.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that one.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
That was her mother.
Because, yes, it was her mother. We got also, of course, the Avas themselves, which, as we kind of learn, are
the souls
integrated with the souls of the people that ride them, their mothers.
Yep.
Which immediately once I heard that, I was like, oh, so they're in a womb.
Yep.
And it's basically a fucking womb.
Yep,
it fills up with the LCL, fluid. They're in the womb of this robot that is basically a reincarnation of the soul of their mothers.
Right.
A lot of mom shit going on.
A lot of mom shit going on. A lot of Freudian
shit.
stuff.
And then, of course, it brings me to one of my biggest questions of this series. Who is Yui? Who is Yui? I know one of you fucks is Yui. I know. Is she in Unit 1? Is she the robot? Is she Rei? Gendo, what did you do with your wife? Lord.
What did you do, Gendo?
Lord.
What did you do?
What did you do,
You're about
Gendo?
to destroy the world so you can be reunited with your wife.
So I think that really came across to me as one of the biggest themes. Just all like the
motherly stuff.
like motherly stuff, of course. Like as you mentioned, like a lot of like idea of parents' influence on children.
Yes.
And a lot of idea of parental scarring of their children.
We haven't even gotten to Asuka yet. We'll get to her
We
later.
have not even gotten to that yet. But there was just a huge through line of just maternal energy throughout the show. And just like, of course, with Shinji being surrounded by 3 women the entire show. And those are the people that are closest to him.
Right.
In Rei, Asuka, and Misato.
Yeah.
That also brings a weird dynamic because there's a whole lot of Oedipus complex stuff going on.
A lot of Oedipus stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And Shinji, he's a 14-year-old boy. He's developing. And at times he finds himself lusting after all 3 of them. You know, one of them is a surrogate mother. Rei, who is our blue-haired waifu, one of the original waifus, if you say, because there's a lot of evidence to say her and Asuka started the big waifu culture boom.
Interesting.
Yes, but Rei has some. We don't know because she does look a lot like Yui. But then again, does Shinji even remember what his mom looks like? Because she died when Shinji was very young, so we don't know anything going on there. Maybe Shinji doesn't know how he feels towards her. That's the thing, because Shinji is trying to grapple his own human emotions while developing the feelings of lust, while, you know, basically going through puberty and all that. So he's an emotional wreck already.
Yeah.
You know, in ways, Asuka, you know, so we have Asuka, who, another Eva pilot. At one point, she actually moves in with Misato and Shinji. And, you know, so I guess you could say almost a surrogate sister thing going on there for a little bit. Shinji is very down to clown around with her, as we learn.
Yeah.
So,
oh boy,
it's just a lot of weird stuff going on. Yeah, definitely a lot of Oedipus stuff. But it's in a way, I guess I understood it, because imagine being thrown into the situation, you're a developing boy, and then, especially when you have like the grown woman who walks around with very little clothing, just in your home, who's usually drunk. Yeah. I mean, a lot going on. I mean, if I was Shinji, I wouldn't know what to do in that situation at all. I'd be terrified.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of brings me to another point about this show, is that sex is always like a weird fucking thing in this show. It's never like normal. It's never cut and dry. It's never considered something that is just like a between 2 people that love each other. There's always some kind of connotation to sex in the show. It's never just let it lie.
Yeah.
It's never just like oh, they had sex. That's great. Even when Misato and Kaji, have sex in the show, it's not. It comes with a lot of connotations.
Comes with a lot.
Even
of context.
when I mean, because Shinji's obviously going through a lot when he's like having these dreams, and like picturing himself having sex with like a Misato or a Rei or an Asuka, which I mean is a whole debate as well.
Yeah.
As we know. But it's just sex and Gendo, of course, with, as we know, as we find out, Ritsuko's mother, and supplementarily, Ritsuko herself. Yeah. Which, Gendo, you dog.
I will say, I will say, during that phone call we mentioned, the only detail you were willing to give, because it wasn't too important, you went off. It's like, fucking Gendo, man. He fucked generations. This guy is an animal. And I'm in my car crying to myself. Like, it's not that important, so I'm gonna bring it up now. Fucking Gendo, man. And in my head, that's why I brought it up earlier. I'm like, yeah, Gendo's kind of a bastard.
He's kind of a bastard. He has sex with a mom, and then she dies.
Yep.
And then he has sex with her daughter to manipulate both of them. Not even because he likes them, just to see his wife again.
Yep.
Wow. Gendo. You fucking crazy man.
And there is like the one scene, we had to bring it up, because the Rei in this show that we know originally, she's the second clone.
Yes.
The first Rei clone was killed by Ritsuko's mom, because she, you know, and it's implied, like, we're still unclear, but you know, there's some element of Yui with these clones. And one of the, you know, the first Rei started calling Ritsuko's mom an old hag and just started berating her. And she wasn't too thrilled, because she immediately realized, hey, you look a little bit like Yui, and now this is weird for me. because now my current lover is like, is he trying to resurrect his wife? She kept insulting her, like the clone, kept insulting Risco's mother. And she just choked her to death.
Yep. And then she killed herself.
Yes.
And the Magi was born.
And then we got the Magi. Because not only can we put the souls into robots, we put the souls in computers.
Like, man. Jeez. And Rey as a character.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, I'm going to say this about Rey real quick.
Continue. Please
This is a very important note. Almost everybody in the main cast in this show is a broken character. That doesn't really apply to Rey because she would have to be whole to begin with.
Right.
Because, as we mentioned, she is a clone. We learn later on, there's a great scene where we see all the tub of potential Rey clones, and Ritsuko destroys them in a rage because, as we learned, Gendo's fucking her too.
Fucking Gendo, man.
Fucking Gendo. And so she's pissed off. It's like, you used me, so I'm going to, she just destroys all the other Rey clones. Because Rey goes through, like I said, 3 iterations. The one that's choked out as a little kid, so we don't get to know anything about them. And then by the time the series starts, we're on the second Rey.
Yes.
Rey is conscious of the fact she's a clone. And kind of a cool parallel to Shinji here. She's just going about her life doing what she's told.
Yep.
Because she's like, this is my only purpose. I like to read sometimes, sure.
Right.
She doesn't engage a lot with people. She's often, absent from school. Her meals are entirely pill form. She doesn't really have a purpose in life, except she knows she's only there to get in Eva Unit 0 and just fight the angels.
Yep.
So, but as the show goes on, she starts feeling a lot of affection towards Shinji because Shinji is very affectionate towards her. In the first episode, he pilots the Eva just so Rey doesn't have to.
Right.
And there's a lot of emotion there, and we still don't know, like, does Shinji have, are his feelings romantic in nature, or are they familial?
Mm-hmm. Because it is at the end of the day kind of a pseudo copy of his own mom.
Exactly.
With killer blue hair.
Yeah. Wild blue hair.
And red eyes. But even from the beginning of the show, I'll tell you this. So at the Netflix version, when you finish the show, no matter, in the first 10 or 10 to 12 episodes, the endings weren't necessarily the worst, right? The endings weren't necessarily leaving you on some oh, this is fucked up kind of note until later in the show.
Yeah.
And every credit scene was like the image of Rey naked, kind of dancing on water and kind of in her reflection of water in the nighttime with the moonlight sky and with her theme in the Netflix version.
Yes, a big thing.
Yes. And that's specific to the Netflix version is her theme at the end of the end credits, right?
Oh, did you already look this up?
I looked it up.
Thank God.
But
I love being not the only dorky fact guy.
But yeah, no, I looked it up, and that is only specific to the Netflix version because it's got like the piano like din din din.
I love Rey's theme.
It's beautiful, but it got me at the end of every episode. Even if it was happy, even if like Pen was doing some dumb shit, at the end of the episode, it just goes to that and that song, and I was like, why do I feel like so much bad stuff is gonna happen? I don't feel good. I do not feel good about this.
That's why I love Rey's theme. I've been listening to the soundtrack over the past week when I knew we were finally going to record today. Rey's theme it's like Rey herself. It's ethereal. It's so delicate that it's almost too pure for this world. But there's a great haunting twist to it.
Yeah.
It gets a little because there's some dissonance in there with the strings and the piano, and it gets very dissonant at some points. Like it's elegant but horrifying.
And Rey as a character, I was not surprised to find out that she was like some sort of clone or something.
It became more evident as the show
because it became pretty obvious
she had no emotion,
something's going
or
on.
Concept of emotion,
right?
Except a strong fondness for Gendo,
right?
Because that's her creator.
Exactly. Yeah. Like something's going on there, of course, and of course. She could be just like hit with some Yui stuff. Like I don't know what's going on in there.
That's the thing is there Yui juice going on.
It could be some Yui juice, or it could be just that orange punch we all know as LCL. That could be some of that.
Oh, the goo, the great orange goo LCL.
Yeah, delicious, amazing,
tasty. But yeah, with Rey, Rey resonated with me more and more as the show went on. Just the idea of someone desperately trying to understand their emotions.
Yeah,
I mean that strikes a chord with me on a personal level. And I will say the first time I screamed during this show, It's later on in the series. I forget what angel they're fighting. And I'll bring back to the first couple episodes in a minute, because there's a very interesting note I have about how the first couple episodes handle the fight scenes. Anyway, Rey basically suicide bombs.
Yes.
Shinji, I remember Shinji going like, "What are you doing?" Or someone says like, "What the fuck is she doing?" And she just utters a line that hit me, where she's like, where she said, and I'm paraphrasing, but I believe the line was, in the dub at least, was, "I can be replaced." I haven't done this for a lot of media. Never when I'm by myself. But the first time, I just screamed, "No!" I audibly yelled. I was home alone. I wasn't reacting for a camera. It was just raw and guttural when she suicide bombed herself.
Yeah.
And it took me back, where I'm like, oh my God, I just did that.
Yes.
So that hit me hard. Then I realized, wow, this is before the ending. This show is already pulling a lot of emotion out of me.
And you think that, of course, like, you know, at the time, like when I was watching, for example, like, you know, I'm kind of thinking about, all right, Rey's, there's something going on there. Like, she's like,
there's something funky.
Either a clone or an android, or like she's brainwashed or whatever. But I was like, there's something fucky going on here. But when she said that line, like, I can be replaced, I was like, wow. And then it got me thinking, because later in the series, you find out that she meant that literally.
Yes.
Like, she is able to be replaced by Rey.
Yep. And
3.
And there's Rey 3 comes out.
Yes. Which is the thing, of course.
Yep.
And the most interesting part to me about Rey is that even in the last 2 episodes, right, when you have, which I need to just gush about a lot. I want to talk about Asuka, and then we can gush about that stuff.
Yeah.
But
you haven't even gotten to Toji yet.
Oh my God, fucking Toji, my boy. But in the last 2 episodes, when you have human instrumentality happening, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's going through stuff.
Yeah.
Rey is present.
Yeah.
Which is weird to me. Kind of in hindsight. Because I'm thinking like, all right, she's a clone. She has one purpose. She has one thing. She's the 3rd iteration of herself. Why is her personality part of this?
Yep.
Why is her personality something that we have to contend about? Or why is it kind of thrown in there with an Asuka who's faced so much trauma, a Shinji who's faced so much trauma, a Misato who has also faced a lot of trauma? Why is Rey there? Because as Rey 3, she must retain some memories of past Reys, possibly.
Yep.
And those kind of empty body Reys are new Reys, but that kind of got me thinking that Gendo is using the same mind for all of these Reys.
That was my interpretation.
Erasing some of the memories, but I mean, you can't, probably some of it gets erased in transition. But
I think
it's probably some of that.
I think they retain more than he means.
Yes.
Because, you know, there are some points where Rey is confused. Like when Rey 3 is awakened, I think it was Shinji who was very happy to see her in the hospital bed, and he's saying all this stuff, and Rey 3 offhandedly says like, "Oh, that must be the memories of the previous one."
Yeah.
And so and when instrumentality occurs, my thought was maybe that she's suddenly getting this flood of memories from their 2 past selves. I would love to hear the conversation with the first one where it's like, "Oh, you were strangled to death? What happened there?"
Right.
And then she killed herself? Okay, cool.
Well, all right then.
Yeah.
Gendo, you dog.
Gendo, you fucking dog. I don't know what to say else. I'll say about Gendo, especially when we get to the end of Eva. I have thoughts.
But let's take this time to right now. I mean, we talked about Shinji.
Yeah.
Talked about Misato. Talked about Rey. Talked about Gendo. Let's talk about Asuka.
Oh boy, yes.
Let's give a chat about Asuka. I think that is, there's a core 4 in this show for sure.
Right.
I mean, we'll talk about the side characters too, because as comparatively to a lot of other shows, I think the side characters are very important in this show.
Oh, totally.
To a degree. But
totally.
These 4 are the main ones that we stick with the entire way through, right? I mean, we pick up Asuka a little later.
Episode 8.
But I think Asuka has some of the most impactful stuff in the show.
Oh, totally. Asuka, this is what I love about Asuka. Because in the beginning, you think, okay, she's a bitch, but we're going to learn why, and it's going to be kind of, you know, maybe a little sad.
Like, but like, all right.
And then you could get...
Oh, boy, it is way more than sad, let me tell you.
It is... calling it depressing is an understatement. I mean, it is some of the saddest I felt for a character. So we learn about Asuka. By the way, in the early episodes, I gotta say, I loved the banter between Shinji and Asuka.
Yes.
If I remember, I'm bad with the episode numbers. I just said episode 8 for Asuka's debut, but I'm not certain about that. Could have been 7. I don't know. But I believe that episode 9 was the one where Asuka and Shinji had to like really improve their coordination as a team. Mm-hmm. And so they played the rhythm games because they realized they had...
Oh my God, they played like Twister and stuff.
They're electronic Twister because... And that's why... And this is actually a great chance for me to talk about Eva as a mech. Because in the early episodes, especially we're watching it back again, it's a very good mech. For one particular reason. There's logic and strategy. And it's a very militaristic approach. And for my mech nerds out there, I love the Evas in general because we learn... We learn they have human souls in them, and we learn they're basically angels that have been possessed.
Right.
And that explains a lot, because these robots move in a very human way. If I had to guess, especially with the time limit, once the cord gets cut, there's a 5-minute time limit.
Yes, right.
That combined with the humanoid movements, that's where we see a lot of the Ultraman influence. Mm-hmm. There's fan films of Hideaki Anno being Ultraman that he made in college. So... I believe the action, and especially just the way the Evas move and run, and the fact they're using very human weapons, I would love to say, and I'm going to say with full confidence, that's the nice little Ultraman influence coming in. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing with my thing with mech. I love it when, because mech has 2 different phylums, what we call the real robot and super robot genres. Super robots, as the name implies, they're basically the superheroes who just, the answer is scream louder and then punch harder. Not that interesting stuff, because then it becomes an episode of Dragon Ball.
Right.
I love the more militaristic mechs when they realize, okay, we can't attack this thing head on, or we have to use close quarters combat. We have this amount of time. In those early episodes of Evangelion, there is a lot of emphasis on the strategy of how to attack the angels.
Yes.
Which, as a mech guy, I loved.
And a lot of that comes from Misato.
Yes.
Misato is a driving force behind a lot of their strategies.
She's a strategist, and that's why I got so much respect for Misato earlier on. She takes the role of the commander that you see in some Gundam series, for example. Even there's like that's where the militaristic aspect for me comes in, is from the more Gundam side of things, where like you see like, okay, we have to think harder, because the early episodes of Gundam were very much there's one Gundam and then a ton of Zeon forces. What the fuck do we do?
Right.
And that's where I feel the Gundam influence comes in. And I loved it because we were watching it back, and I'm just like, wow, this is just a very good mech. And of course, there's so much other stuff to talk about the series, but I had to give props to the fact that it at the bedrock of Eva is a damn solid mech anime.
Yes.
Probably it's my favorite anime of all time, obviously. But in terms of mech, I think one of the best in terms of just like, hey, just applying logic to the situation. And, like I said, the cord getting pulled out and the battery life, that's straight from Ultraman, because Ultraman had the 3-minute timer.
Right.
Not saying it's a bad thing. You take influence from what you love. So I really like that. But then they introduced the Berserk mode in episode 2, and they don't bring it back for more than 10 episodes later.
They really don't.
And that's what I love to
wait on that.
They really wait on that. And now that creates... It's just long enough where you can forget about it.
Yeah.
That's a function of the Evas. And so huge props to Eva for being just a damn solid mech. And speaking of mech, speaking of all this, like these attributes, Asuka prides herself entirely on being a damn good Eva pilot.
Yes. Which is so interesting considering the other Eva pilots that she's around.
Yeah.
Because
they don't want to be there. Rey's only be there.
Rey is there because she has to be there.
Right.
Or because that's all she knows.
Right.
And Shinji doesn't want to even pilot the thing. So
he just wants his dad to say hi to him.
Yes, he does. Because, oh my God, there's so many episodes in like the beginning around that time when Shinji's like, does dad approve of me? When father likes what I do, did father like that I did that? I'm like, all right, Shinji, just shut up a little bit.
But then in the same breath, Shinji be like, I hate you, father. You made me almost kill Toji.
Yes. Oh, well, we'll talk about that too. But for Asuka's sake, it's so interesting the way that Asuka. Oh yeah, get another beer. Don't worry about me.
Yeah, if you hear some rumbling,
I'm just going off on this.
You need another beer.
Yes, I do. Thank you. But I think it's so interesting to have that dichotomy between Asuka and Shinji, because Asuka's like, it's like Asuka's winning a race that Shinji doesn't even want to be in, that Shinji hasn't even ran in. So it's like Asuka's like, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can do that, and Shinji's over here like, I don't want to be here.
Right.
Like, I'm not even in this race.
And that brings up the core difference between the characters, and because a lot of ways they're parallels, and there's some ways they're complete opposites, which I really love. There's also a thing with the parents going on where Asuka, she originally she just wanted to. She was essentially, I mean, it might. I'm just gonna jump right into it. She was trying to break her mother's psychosis, because we learned about Asuka's mother after all these episodes of Asuka being a total bitch and like trying to prove she's an adult. There's a very it's a powerful scene with her and Kaji, where she's basically a Kaji. You know, who we learn he might be a double agent. He's working for Nerve, the organization that Gendo and Misato and Ritsuko are all part of to like stop the angels. He might be a double agent for them. He might be a double agent working for the Japanese Defense Force and Seilei, the bigger governing body.
Seilei. We haven't even talked about Seilei yet.
Well, like I said, like if you guys wanted to understand Eva through this podcast, don't go watch it. Come back.
Yeah,
we should have said that in the beginning. But anyway, so Kaji, our boy, he was stationed over in Germany, and he was Misato's former lover. He's very interesting. He's more of a plot device than a character in some ways, but he is a solid enough character. His job is to move the plot along in like just by the other characters reacting to him, not really much his own actions.
It's to get the characters around him to think,
exactly,
and it's to get characters around him to act.
And
because Misato does just that.
Yes.
When she has conversations with Kaji, also Shinji.
And
takes
Shinji,
a little bit from Kaji.
There's a great scene we'll get to in a minute, but to bring it back to why I bring him up in the case of Asuka, because Asuka is German, Kaji was stationed in Germany with like the Eva project going on there. There's this very interesting scene, powerful is a word or uncomfortable is another, where Asuka basically tells Kaji, have sex with me, I'm an adult. And Kaji's like, no, yeah, really, no, sorry, just a whole lot of no there, girl.
Boy. Oh,
yeah, no, and that gets back to Asuka's, desire to prove herself, because it's all rooted in that. Because we learn, Asuka's mother goes kind of insane.
Yes,
she's in a mental hospital. She's playing with his doll, thinking it's
her child.
So that's fucked up in and of itself.
Yeah.
And apparently during her time in the hospital, Asuka's father starts running around. He's like, well, my wife's crazy. I'm going to go find someone else. The mother doesn't take this well. And we don't, and again, this gets into the atmospheric side of Eva. We don't see a lot of this. Like, it cuts to the dolls swinging or just like some still images. And there's a lot of monologues where it's basically Asuka begging her mother not to kill the both of them. Yes. Because in her state, I think there's some weird, she's insane at this point, and Asuka presumably is there to visit her mother. And so Asuka's mom thinks, hey, this would be a great time for us to both die. And the child's horrified because her mother is about to kill her.
Yeah. And
we don't know how it's resolved, but she gets away. But she still loves her mother with all her heart. And when she gets selected to be an Eva pilot, the first thing she does is run to her fucking mother to tell her. She thinks, Mom will be so proud of me, it's going to help. When she gets there, her mother's just hanging out.
Oh,
okay. God. I apologize a million times for that pun. Come on. I know that was brutal.
Woo!
I know that was bad, but no.
Oh, God. No, she is... Wow. But that's the thing, though.
Yeah, Asuka told her to hang in there. She took it way too early.
God.
Oh, no. But no, there's a reason why I make this joke, and we'll get to it when we get to the end of Ava.
But I'll tell you what, Asuka, she can't hang, but her mom...
Welcome to the party. Our seats in hell are reserved. We don't even have to pay for parking.
But yeah, it's
but like back to my whole point.
Yeah,
she wants
continue.
After that day, she says, fuck it. I'm not doing anything for anyone else. I'm only living for myself, and I'm going to validate myself.
Yes.
That's where a lot of her desire to be a great Eva pilot comes from. That's apparently her desire to fuck Kaji. And that kind of goes over to Shinji a little bit, because I think it was episode 15, where Asuka and Shinji are hanging out, bored. And Asuka just goes, Want to kiss? It's like, what? That
Yeah.
one got me. I'm just like, oh.
and then, of course, kind of more on that idea. I mean, I think the end of Evangelion is a really, like, before in the series, I think that on my first watch,
Okay.
I didn't really get a lot from the relationship between Shinji and Asuka.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought of it as just something that was like, it's like kind of slice of lifey. It's just like them trying to coexist and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's like, haha.
Well, it
whatever.
was a nice break, honestly.
It was.
Because
It
how
was.
intense the show gets at some point.
It was.
We needed the respite.
We did. We didn't know we did, but we needed it.
Oh, yeah.
But in End of Eva, as we're going to talk about eventually,
it gets more clear.
It becomes a little more clear where they stand and
Yeah.
kind of what their relationship is.
Yeah.
Which I think I'm glad that they addressed because I feel like we definitely need it.
We did. I think because I feel like in the original series it was there, but it was a little I guess to a degree a little hard to penetrate, a little hard to realize like, okay, this is what's going on, because there's so many flashback, like so many weird sequences of flashing imagery and just the dialogue.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get the full impact of the
It is
relationships
hard.
in the original series, but
The full third impact.
nice.
Are you talking nice? Yeah.
But yeah.
Fucking Adam and Lilith. Who are they? All right.
Okay. We'll talk about that in a bit too.
So
Because here's the thing about
yes,
Ava.
okay.
And here's the thing some people disliked about Ava a lot. That honestly, for me, again, bias here. I've always been a half picture guy, meaning I do not need every detail. I do not need to know how the peanut butter is made. I just never, that stuff, the nitty gritty never interests me. The biggest example I can give is the midichlorians in Star Wars. It's like, don't explain what the Force is. Let it be. In the prequels, they really try to hammer home, like, well, there's midichlorians. That's how the Force works. I'm like, don't explain it.
Uh-huh.
That's unneeded.
And
in Ava, they do not explain everything. But
And-
personally, for me, I got the gist of it. I was good.
And the interesting part here is that I'm the exact opposite.
Right. Yeah.
I need to learn and be told everything about this, which is why, as I'll kind of talk about eventually, that I had to dig into so many supplementary materials.
Okay.
To kind of fully understand the whole picture of what exactly is going on here.
Right.
I need to do a frame-by-frame analysis of all of those insane cuts in the last 2 episodes to get exactly what the hell is going on and what the origins of these things are.
Right.
Because that's important to me. That's very important to me. The narrative and the plot that this show built was extremely important to me.
Right.
In a way that I put it on the same level as the characters.
Really?
Yes. For
Okay,
myself.
wow.
For
Okay,
myself.
cool.
For myself. Because I think the idea of needing to know what they're all working for and know what exactly the ramifications of everything they're doing are, I needed to know.
Gotcha.
And I did not get that.
Yeah, no.
Did not get that by a mile. And before I get into that, we're an hour in. So,
already?
Yeah. I think we might need to take a bit of a break.
I think we need a bit of a break, everybody. So that's a great little note to leave it on. We're gonna come back next week. I think we need to stretch and then let's get right back into it.
Yep. We're gonna come back.
We're gonna give your ears a rest. We'll be back in a bit.
Yep. See you next week, everybody.
Bye.
It's bad.
Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you could leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
In your ear. Podcast Network.